This meeting of the Planning Economic Development Committee. I appreciate everyone showing up, and I hope it is an entertaining and valuable use of your time. First off, we'd like to approve the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any changes to the minutes? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right. Next up, we have a presentation regarding the Utica revitalization. Mr. Nelson Vassie.
This is where I go?
Yes, sir. And just state your name for the record and then tell us about it.
I got some friends coming in. There we go.
Okay.
I'm Nelson Vassie. My wife Marlene is with me, and I want to talk about something that's kind of near and dear to our heart. And this is Ray and Sarah Martin that just walked in. I grew up at Utica many years ago. My wife grew up at Utica. Sarah Martin grew up at Utica. My family moved there when I was about 4 years old, and that would have been like 1948. A long time ago, right, Glenn? And I lived there when it was a real nice place to live. Never was elaborate, but it was a really nice place to live. And I don't know how many of you have seen it lately, but not like it used to be. So, do you want to tell a little bit about your childhood and what you want to? My wife is really one that kind of started this, because she's been aching for something to be done about the terrible conditions at Utica for a long time. You want to come say something? You don't mind, do you?
No, sir. Please go ahead.
Oh, I have to come up there.
So they can hear you.
You're being recorded and broadcast on the internet, the whole world.
Oh, I was born there, so I lived there until 1965 when I married Nelson. But I stayed by myself from the time I was 9 years old. The mother of the kids next door fed me lunch, watched out for me. My house was a house of a lot of recreation because my parents weren't home. So all the kids came there, and we had little games like soap up the car and slide down the front, and just little things like that. And but anyway, it was a fun time, and my parents worked. Well, my mom was one of the last ones out, and my daddy worked many, many years. And it was just a neat place. You didn't lock your screen doors at night. You didn't put your windows down. You knew everybody on every street. The overseer in the mill sort of forced you to go to church, because he'd come around on Monday morning and say, were you in church yesterday, and what church were you in, and that kind of thing. So it was just, at first there was a Baptist church and there wasn't a Methodist church, and the overseer had the people in the church, in the mill that were Methodist, to go to the Sunday school in a little house. And then they built our house, Ann Hope Methodist Church. And they named it Ann Hope because the overseer had two daughters. One was named Ann and one was named Hope. But they financed a Methodist church in the community. We had a little grocery store there where you walked and get your groceries. We had a YMCA there that the kids played basketball and congregated together. And it was just a wonderful place. The meal at Christmas gave all the kids a huge bag of fruit and toys at Christmas time. I mean, it was just a protected, safe, fun place. Everybody knew everybody, and everybody looked out for everybody. And it grieves. I have a passion from that place because it's where I grew up, and it's really special to me. And I just want to see something done. It breaks our heart. We don't live in the community anymore, but we're still at a church in the community. And we desire greatly to see good things down there. And we have so many little children on Wednesday night and Monday night, and they deserve a good place to grow up. They don't deserve to see shootings and killings and that kind of thing. But thank you for listening to us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for giving us an opportunity to ask for some help. Okay. So what we have in the Utica community is like 300+ homes or properties there. And it's a multicultural community. And a lot of low-income people live there. Elderly people live there. There's a lot of homeless people there. So that just gives you an idea of what kind of area this is. And I want to show you some pictures of some of the dilapidated structures that are there, some of which are very dangerous. Some have been burned out. Some are just abandoned, boarded up. Nobody lives there. We don't think nobody lives there. Formerly they don't, but they may come in and a homeless person may come in and sleep there or something. Okay, this is the first house. This is actually a house next to the rescue squad. This house, next slide would be, that's the side of it. This house caught on fire. I understand right there where the chimney part is where they were cooking meth. So that's how the house caught on fire. This is another house that caught on fire. I don't know about this one, why the fire started, but there's one that caught on fire. This house here is right straight in front of the Ann Hope United Methodist Church, where my wife and I attend. And it's just totally fallen in. Right down behind the church, that one she just passed, that one is right down behind the church on the next block over. And that's the old Blackwell house. I used to be friends with Homer Blackwell. You remember Homer? And I think he's in a rest home or has recently died. But anyway, that house is burned out. This is just an abandoned house here. And I don't know anything about it other than I took pictures of houses I knew no one was living in. So, and I also wanted to give you a look at some of the dumping areas on the village there. There's some stuff in here that could be real hazardous to your health. You can't. Some of these pictures I took don't really do justice to what I actually saw there. This is another abandoned house. That's an abandoned house next to the one you just saw. And that's the side of that same house. That's a mobile home right next to it. All the windows busted out, and you can tell no one lives there. And that's an abandoned house. This place here, we used to eat hot dogs there. That used to be Tom Duncan's grocery store. And it's just, I just fell in, I guess. It's been there a long time. That's right on the avenue, right on Goddard Avenue. And there's a house that's abandoned. The next house is also, okay, that's more dumping there. You can't see a lot of what's actually back in there. That car parked there, I couldn't really get a good shot of that. But and I didn't want to walk on anybody's property because I might get shot down there. And that's more dumping, just a lot of trash. And like I say, you can't see a lot of what's actually there, but you can get an idea of what the place looks like. That's another abandoned house. Now this is taken from kind of on the top of a hill there, looking down in the backyard of a house, and I could see more than what you see in this photo. I could see a lot of stuff there that looked pretty dangerous in that junk. You can't see that from the street in front of the house, but I just happened to notice it up there. That's another dumping area there. Just got a lot of trash in it. That's an abandoned mobile home. I guess that's a mobile home. It's what it looks like anyway. That's an abandoned mobile home, but then the roof falling off, the windows are broken out, and it's just falling in. But I believe somebody sleeps there. I think Tim sleeps.
Actually, the mobile home that the girl got stabbed 6
Right, not long ago, a girl was stabbed there a number of times, and also that's where the girl overdosed and died there some months back. Okay. More dumping there. That's an abandoned house. That's an abandoned house. That's right there. That house there is right next to my brother used to live to the right of that house years ago. Now that house actually looks pretty decent, but it's abandoned. Nobody lives there, and I don't know why, but they've got it boarded up, and nobody's there. That's an abandoned house. Most of these houses, the windows are broken out, a lot of them, and some of them are just boarded up. That one's abandoned. That one's abandoned. That's an abandoned trailer. Windows busted out. That's an abandoned house. Falling in. And I can just imagine a kid walking up and under that open place right there that you saw into that house. And that's just another pile of trash, another abandoned house. So, okay, we got dilapidated houses there. You got a lot of safety and health situations there because of a lot of that and the dumping. And there's a lot of drug use down there, manufacturing of drugs. And you know, our local law enforcement realizes this, and they have a problem really doing something about it a lot of times. You can't just go in and arrest somebody because you know they're doing something. You got to have some kind of proof, I guess. So, having shown you all of this, I think this is a place to present you with this information in hopes that maybe you can help us find a way to get something done about cleaning up this place, about bulldozing down some of the burned out houses, maybe finding some grant money to help to do this. I don't know, maybe there's county ordinance or code or something that we could enforce to help promote some of this to be cleaned up. Maybe we need some dumpsters down there. Maybe the county needs to park some dumpsters, a couple on each side of the village for the people to put trash in. Because when you think about it, a lot of these people don't have a vehicle. I mean, they got all this trash in their backyard because they can't haul it off. And, you know, they're low income, so they can't pay anybody to come haul it off. We've had several meetings, just 5 of us, Ray and Sarah Martin, Marlene and myself, and Angie Miller, who wasn't able to make it. And we've met probably 3 or 4 times just to talk about this and bring ideas to the table of what we might could do to have something done about this. This is a real dangerous place down there. And I know a lot of you are aware and familiar with Utica Village. The last meeting we had, Sheriff Crenshaw was there, and he had this printed off and let me take it. This is a map of Oconee County and highlighted areas of all the calls that they received. And the darker the color, the more calls. Well, if you look at this, you can see which one's the darkest color. Guess where that's at? Utica. The darker the color, the closer to Utica. Right in there is Utica. And I can't remember. He told us how many calls he had received there just in the last year or something. But it's astronomical. And you know, the looks of this is one thing. We would like to see the place look better, you know. But this goes a lot further than just how that area looks. It's a dangerous place, and the county should be concerned about this place because this is going to spread. You know, right now it's contained in Utica and just the surrounding areas, but if we don't get something done about this and clean some of this up and quit inviting people to go down there in dilapidated houses and cook meth, you know, it's going to spread to the rest of the county. You know, it affects all of us. So anyway, I appreciate your time for to listen to this, and I hope that this committee can bring it to somebody's attention to give us some help of some kind. That's what I wanted to ask for.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Vassy. Appreciate that. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Vassy?
Yeah, I got a few. First off, thank you for caring about that area. You know, it's unfortunate that Utica, that's kind of what it's known for now, and a lot of people have said, hey, what can we do about this over the years? And that's one of the things that I've spoke with Mr. Kane a time or two on, saying, you know, the starting to clean up Oconee County starts in Utica, and it starts in that area. And, you know, as you've known, if you followed anything with me, the idea of cleaning up abandoned, dilapidated houses is huge on my list. The way to do it is the biggest issue that we have. Do y'all have a number of abandoned houses or dilapidated houses? Did y'all do a count to know exactly?
The pictures I showed you, I think were like 30, something like that.
I was thinking.
The best I could tell, I rode up and down every street. The best I could tell, the ones I showed you are all the ones that are abandoned
'Cause
and burned out.
I've counted just through the times, and me and Mr. Kane have done some news stories on that as well, somewhere in the 50 range.
Well, if it was,
Trailer, and that's counting some of
Yeah.
the trailer bases,
Over on
that
Owen
stuff is
Roads.
still there on
Owens Road too,
Owens
yeah.
Road, and including that area in there is in the 50s, so it's, I mean, it's getting worse. And the good thing is you got a lot of great people that's doing a good job at buying homes and fixing them up in there. So, you know, I don't want people to I also understand that this has been a lot of good chances for people to buy low-income houses and fix them up. I mean, there's some beautiful, amazing houses in there as well, and there's some, awesome people in that area too. And I don't want that to go unnoticed, because that is home to a lot of great citizens, but it also is very inviting to those that do wrong in our county. And I think, I know it's top 10. If I'm not mistaken, it's a top 3 visitation from our sheriff's department. They might as well just keep maybe that's another substation right smack dab in the middle of it, since they're there anyway. And I'm kind of you're going to pay now or pay later. So we're either going to do something about it, or we're just going to keep paying for it. So I think the biggest 2 questions that I have that maybe get answered, you bring up trash service, and that's something that I've always talked about on low-income communities. The biggest struggle that they have is it's not necessarily are they trashy. They don't have a way to get rid of their trash. And that area, unless I'm wrong, has no trash pickup in that area because it's not serviced by the city.
Correct.
For the longest time, I thought it was city limits, and learned that it's not
No.
city limits on there. So I don't know if there's a possibility in that. I guess maybe that would be something that we would have to consider funding to help clean up that area, because it's not the only area in the county that's this way. But at the same time, the ability to get and remove that trash could help clean up that area as well. And I think Mr. Kane's gonna bring up an ordinance that's going on in the State House, so I won't steal his thunder on that. That'll help us recuperate that.
Still my thunder.
I'm not
Yeah.
stealing his thunder.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, but the idea, through the House, do you have that printed out? Do you still have that?
I don't, but
But,
I know that, to your point there is a bill in State House regarding extending the mechanisms that municipalities currently have in being able to apply the costs of repairing or removing problem structures. You can apply that to someone's property taxes. And that's, the municipalities currently have that, I believe, but counties don't. And so there's something at State House right now. Hopefully that'll pass this year, and we'll have that mechanism to address some of these issues. Because I know we have certainly a shortage of workforce housing. That neighborhood, that area, that village sits literally right next to the Seneca Rail Park, one of our certified industrial parks. And people could literally walk to it if they so chose, once we have a facility located there. Of course, we have the Propex building that's pretty well rented out, and these folks could certainly get jobs there. But go ahead, Mr. Davis, I kind of interrupt you.
The question that I have is as you move forward, and let's call it House 3 that you had up there, a study would have to be done from an asbestos abatement. Is that correct? So each house would have to have an asbestos, and if it came back 0, then your cost would be XYZ to tear it down. If it came back with asbestos, as some of those, obviously you can look at the siding on those houses on there, you'd have to remove that. So to me, that's where your cost comes in, and you're talking about grants there. I would sure hope when you're doing these downtown revitalizations and property cleanups in a lot of areas such like what we're considering here, there's got to be something available to kind of help with that, because the cost associated with the abatement is huge. But, you know, like, again, you're either going to pay now or pay later. So that's kind of the things that we look at moving forward with that. So I'd be interested, I guess, would there be every house would be a specific cost, or how would we go through that?
Yes, sir, you basically would do an assessment of each particular property. The difference really in cost of the abatement, and we'll have to look at each individual situation, is the fact that asbestos and lead-based paint can't go into an unlined landfill, which is what ours is. So you've got transportation costs and tipping fees to take it to a lined landfill like Homer, Georgia. So that's really where the difference in cost, and that's not generally a whole lot, but yeah, I would say you'd have to basically assess each property, send an engineer out there, send our public works crew, and do a cost estimate for each one, which can be easily done.
So if you assessed 50 houses, or let's start at half of that, 25, you'd have a specific cost to there, and say 10 of those came back free of asbestos, then you could start something with that on that type of project. I mean, losing 10 out of your pictures there would make a
Yeah.
step.
A little
Thank
bit of
you.
help.
That's all I have.
I got one question. You think that you might could get some money out of Sunker High athletic program for all the athletes that come out of Utica?
We should be able to, yeah. Some of the best ones came out of Utica.
Some of them play pro ball.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
If you don't mind, let me mention one other thing. There's another effort, aside from this one that we're talking about tonight, going on at Utica. There is a recently formed organization, and the name of it is Utica Inc. And this organization is formed specifically to raise funds to build a community youth center at Utica. Not off the village, but on the village there, like the one we used to have, but better, you know, and probably bigger. We're looking for land, and would like to find something that's right on the village for all the kids, you know, that they can come to play after school, I don't know, tutoring, whatever we can do to help the young people down there. This committee has met like 6 or 8 times, I think. We have applied for 501c3. There's a formal board of directors, of course, and in fact, I'll ask you to forgive me for leaving early, because I got a meeting with them I got to go to after this one. But I wanted to just mention that to you so that you understand there's good things going on down there, and this is going to be one of them. And we need to get some places really cleaned up to help this project move along, the Community Youth Center. So. Yeah. You guys mind?
And we don't have a whole lot of time, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll keep it short. The other positive thing is we feed over 100 on Wednesday night families who live in the area, and we form relationships with them. On Monday night, we have about 100 children that Mennonites teach there, and it has grown. The younger ones have gone to Church of God of Prophecy, who has an indoor basketball court, and they're there, and the older girls are meeting at our church on Thursday night, and we still have the smaller ones. So lots of great things are going on, and we just need a little help to get it going on outside the church.
Well, that's what we're going to try to do.
Thank you
Thank
very
y'all
much.
for coming. And I think the case has been well stated that at this point we need to get involved and really help y'all because y'all have done a lot of the footwork and y'all only have so many resources. So I think what we need is probably a motion to direct the administrator to develop a plan to help revitalize Utica. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, so You know, we certainly could, and I know you had mentioned you were gonna bring it up Friday, obviously during the strategic planning session as well in the morning. You know, we could take the information, we could go down, perform some assessments, put some cost numbers to it, kind of develop some goals and strategies with regards to what we would need to accomplish in order to kickstart this revitalization. I mean, you could take it all the way from just tearing down a few houses to reconfiguring the streets with sidewalks and street lights to partnering through a public-private partnership with a developer for, you know, purchasing and renovating and selling houses in there. I mean, it can, you know, to building a community center with them. There's so many different things and examples that can be done. As they said, you know, all the dominoes can't fall until the first one falls. So, you know, we can start looking at some phased plans. Mr. Ritter's done a great job looking for grants. She's also gone down and met with these folks at some of their meetings, I know at least once. So there are available funding opportunities out there. You know, my only concern is if there's 50 homes out there at an estimate of $4,000 to $12,000 a house for disposal and removal, or removal and disposal, let's average that out at 10 for my easy math, please. That puts us in $500,000 just for the homes themselves. That doesn't include any come back and you know, grade, sow, plant, you know, beautify the lot. You don't want to just tear it down and leave the dirt. You want to come in and clean it up and make it look nice. So right there, you're talking about $500,000. So there are grant opportunities out there. A lot of the ones that I've seen want to deploy their money into homes that are still livable, fixing roofs, fixing broken windows, you know, efficiency, insulation, and taking care of low to moderate income people that way that are actually living there. But there may be other opportunities. So absolutely, we can look at putting together and working with these fine folk, putting together a, you know, kind of an improvement plan that we can start working off of.
Okay, so do we need a motion to direct you to do that, or?
And not out of, I mean, if you want to do it as a committee that we recommend that we discuss it Friday, we can.
Okay. Or I can just
we
bring it up Friday.
on Friday,
Okay.
knowing that you have the support to discuss it then.
I think another thing to do is I know we've got a very active habitat group that's always looking for land and area, and if we're going to remove a structure, I mean, I think the biggest thing is starting to ID your owners for these houses as well. I mean, should be pretty simple. I mean, and then see where we're going from there. If it's a donation to the county for us to remove structures like that or something like that, that way you kind of not only take the structure down on there, then the property can be donated and put to good use, because especially if you're working under the habitat side of things, I mean, you're putting taxes back on the map to help us recoup some of these costs on there, so.
Yeah, obviously, identifying the owner is the first step. The second step is even more difficult, is locating the owner in some cases, and then serving them due process notice that the property needs to be cleaned up and give them ample time. Now, I know in the past, we've talked about this voluntary program for people who may or may not be able to afford to clean up their property. The county can come in and partner and assist them with that under a voluntary program, but I don't know if we've gotten the support from the full council to go forward with that kind of a program, number one. Number two, it's the funding of that program that becomes even more difficult. But again, you know, the last domino can't fall until the first one does. So,
That's right.
You know, we can start with some baby steps and look at ways we can start.
It's costing our sheriff's department a lot of money. It's costing our taxpayers a lot of money right now to incarcerate people who are, you know, committing crimes in this habitat. So
I think if you go, I mean, my motion would be to go after the plan that he's talking, the identification of owners, the contacting of owners, and go that route would be a much lesser route to try to see, okay, then we're looking at, you know, $200,000 or something like that, because if we ID and we actually see kind of what cards we're holding, I think that would at least give us more than just saying, hey, we're gonna revitalize Utica, because that's such
Well, we
a,
gotta start with a plan.
Open book.
To apply for these grants, we gotta have a plan. So, I mean, there's grant funding available out there. Anderson County, or at least the city of Anderson's gotten millions to revitalize or tear down dilapidated
Lexington
structures.
County.
Under Haley
Lexington
and-
County, Florence,
Yeah.
what's that?
Under Haley, and those funds aren't
Well,
really available anymore, but that's.
no, they were federal CDBG funds, but, I mean, I think there's probably some resources out there that we can access. We just need a plan. So, and these folks are clearly willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears to get it done.
Well, some of the best applications for grant funds start with a grassroots effort from a community willing to help itself. And, you know, this Utica Inc. is a great kickoff to that, and the community is coming together in this grassroots effort. So I think it'll make it a strong application, going forward.
I really don't believe you're gonna find 50 homes that need to be demolished. When you commented about $500,000 or something, I don't think there's 50 homes down there that you need to demolish. I got pictures of about 5 that are burned out. I think those are the priority, get those things, demolished. Most of these homes can be fixed up.
Right.
They just kind of falling in a little bit. I would in no way suggest demolishing 50 homes down there.
Right.
So.
But if you can get a partnership with Habitat for Humanity to come back and rebuild, a lot of those, maybe not all 50, but maybe 20 of those can be repaired, and the other 30 can be knocked down and rebuilt through Habitat or something like that. But again, I'm not saying we have to go in and tear all 50 of them down. I don't know much about it, but I mean, there's programs that we can support.
Would y'all be willing to do some kind of identification process of these structures and rank them from, I mean, I don't know how much work y'all are willing to do, but if
You
we.
just give me the addresses, I can have the assessor's office.
Yeah, so if we,
Got that.
let's say if we have 25 homes that we're dealing with here, ranking from worst to, okay, this guy's done a good job at boarding his house up. Would that be something your group's willing to help with, to identify these addresses so we can go to the next step? I think that gives us more of a, road to go down.
Y'all have identified those. And I just asked them not to put the addresses in the public presentation, just for obvious reasons.
This, if you look on the PowerPoint that I gave you over there, it's got addresses for every one of these houses.
Well, I think the biggest thing is a lot of these owners need help. This is
Right.
not something they can accomplish themselves. I mean,
Right.
I have a feeling that at least if there's 10 of them would go, I would more than willing give you the property. I don't know what the tax situation is on some of them. I've seen some of them come across tax maps from time to time, but I'm just thinking of actually having a road to do so we can, it's a little bit more straighter and then go from there.
Yeah, I think obviously focusing on the burned out ones that people have been doing drugs in is a good start. There's about 5 of those that
Yep.
probably we obviously need to be demolished. But working with the owners to ask them politely to fix them up if they can. But thank y'all for coming out and, just, yeah, please step. Could you step to the microphone? Yes, ma'am. Just because we're recording this and there's people.
This is just a smaller thing, but if we had groups that would come down there, like Boy Scouts, Coney Beautification, I think they've said they'd come and help us, but if we could get teams that would come, we could pick up a good bit of trash, just like that, and that would help a little bit. I think any little thing we do will bring encouragement for people to want to do better and expect more.
Absolutely.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Thank y'all for coming.
You want a motion? That's of some
I mean,
idea, or you come up with, then
I'll bring it up on Friday. And we can have the whole council vote on it. Okay, next up, we got development of priorities for inclusion of strategic plan that we'll be talking about on Friday in our strategic planning session. Why don't y'all go ahead and, I've got some of my own, but y'all may have some other, from a planning economic development standpoint that y'all are interested in.
I think number one on my list is, workforce housing, to have a little bit more housing under the 150 range on there. That would include some possible, additional apartments and stuff in our area. In talking to a few apartment owners, I found that the occupancy of those is, extremely, I think they're running in the 98% occupancy rate. A lot of our apartments in this area have gone over to more of a state housing plan instead of a family housing plan that's been, I guess, easier to get paid on or something like that. As far as I know, we only have one apartment that's a standard family unit housing that's not a state licensed house on there. That's definitely one of mine to maybe hope with that. We can work forward there. obviously through economic development and workforce housing to get additional, plants, manufacturing plants and stuff in here, continue to go down that. Appreciate the job that Oconee Economic Alliance and Richard Blackwell and his team do on that. But that's always forefront with me on there. Development of our land that we have for economic development, making sure it's ready to go to the best of the ability of those. I know we've done a lot of good things here last year on the grading, and we've got some new things on the horizon this year. But I have a feeling once we have, this one built, it'll start gauging the interest of the possibility of building another one. Hopefully we can get that one sold pretty quick. That's what I have. I know Mr. Hart has a few.
Well, mine are sort of a repeat from previous days gone by. I want to expand the sewer south. Some of the questions I got for Mr. Blackwell, I'll wait till he comes up. And I've already asked one of these questions about our grant to Mrs. DeRutter, and they've taken the ball out of her court, and it's with the engineering firm right at present. So we need to look into that because our deadline's coming up on us. That's basically what I have right now.
So expand Sewer South and everything that goes along with that?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have right now. I'm gonna ask Mr. Blackwell some
Okay.
questions.
One of the other ones that I had after that was to work a little bit more within our cities on planning and economic development in those for downtown revitalization, and seeing what we could do to put a little bit more emphasis in them to create stronger downtowns, which is definitely what our citizens are pushing for in that area, which will obviously increase businesses, because not only are we after the big businesses, but the small business as well.
All right, anything else? And I asked Ms. Darlene Green, who is here, she's the chair of the Oconee County Chamber of Commerce, to come and give one of their, I believe they have a new strategic, I'll let you tell us. Ms. Green, would you step to the microphone?
Good evening. Mr. Kane asked me to come to share with you some of the details in the strategic plan that the Oconee County Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors has approved. We had a strategic planning session recently and put together notes that were from that session, as well as some other group meetings, and tried to come up with an overall comprehensive plan of how the Chamber was going to help facilitate its service to the membership and the community here in Oconee County and make this a better place to work, live, and play. So the point that Mr. Kane was interested in having me speak to you about is that we have, as a board, agreed that one of the focuses that we think is beneficial to the community would be having council vote for and institute a hospitality tax for the unincorporated county.
That wasn't the one I asked you to talk about, but that's fine.
The benefit of doing this is that it has very, very little impact on the community because all of the surrounding community is already, the municipalities and surrounding counties are having a hospitality tax, and that hospitality tax revenue would allow the county to invest in some other things that would help us with facilitating economic and growth in various areas of recreation, tourism, and other areas. So that was one of our focuses for our strategic plan, and the other was hopefully facilitating some type of work with the county and other municipal partners with an economic corridor plan from Hartwell Village into the county, because we are going to see an increase in development as Hartwell Village becomes active, and we will see increased traffic as people move through the county into the beautiful recreation opportunity that we're going to have at Stump House Tunnel Park with the hiking and mountain biking trails there. So that was the other thing that we were looking at, how we could partner with the county and the municipalities to do whatever we can to help you with planning for that development so that we get development that we end up with something that we're all happy with rather than it just being hodgepodge because we didn't have a good plan for it.
Thank you, Ms. Green. And that was one of the points I wanted to make. I promise I did not plant that corridor plan with the chamber board. They also obviously see the value of corridor planning in this community, and I've been talking about it for too long now without enough concrete action. Nothing against our administrator or any of our staff. It's really been a lack of leadership from this council. But I do appreciate you coming and talking about that. And I did have an opportunity to meet with Ms. Green and Natalie Britt, who is executive director of the Palmetto Conservation Foundation.
Yes, sir.
And they're heading up the development of the extension and improvement of the Stump House Tunnel, mountain bike recreation. Of course, the Palmetto Trail is going to come into there and then follow down into Walhalla, the city. I think as part of that, Ms. Britt suggested that we really need to focus on including with our corridor plan a comprehensive bicycle pedestrian master plan. That way we have an integrated transportation system, not only for vehicles, motorized vehicles, but also ways for folks to get safely up and down our roads or to and from different municipalities, as well as the natural resources that we have safely, both on foot and on a bicycle, and maybe even rollerblades. I don't know. People might still do that too. So that's one of the things, and I appreciate. Did you have any other comments on that?
No, I just think it's important that as we move forward, that these opportunities that are coming with the Palmetto Trail, with the trail coming into Oconee all the way into the county seat, and also the development of this premier mountain biking park, that we make sure we're doing everything we can to maximize the benefit that that's going to be to the community. And a pedestrian, bike-friendly community also provides for, I think, a higher quality of life when people are able to comfortably get out and move around the county on a bicycle or walking without fearing that they're going to be, in an unsafe situation walking on the side of the street. So.
Well, thank you
very much.
Thank you. One other thing, I passed out this news article regarding this whole concept of a trail system, and this is regarding the Swamp Rabbit Trail and the impact it's had on Greenville County. This article is from September of 2016, and it talks about how it's impacted Travelers Rest in Greenville, of course, but also the cities of Malden, Simpsonville, and Fountain Inn have talked about connecting into the Swamp Rabbit Trail system, into, they call it the Golden Strip. So that's just more, we compete on a daily basis in economic development with other places, and it's not just having industrial parks. Those are becoming much more commonplace now. People who are looking at citing an investment in a county or community are looking at quality of life issues, and this is really one of those things that we have to focus on in economic development, that people want to live in a place where they can get around without having to get into a car, and we have to focus on that. We really do, if we want to continue to be competitive in the economic development sphere. So I think it's vital that we work on, as part of a corridor plan, which I think really needs to address all the main corridors in the county, but also as part of that, a comprehensive bicycle pedestrian master plan so that we are competitive. And then we can work on getting some grant funding, but the theme is you got to have the plan before you can apply for the grant funding. And I think it would be a valuable investment for the county to look at a plan, paying for that. Let's see, what else did I have? A couple other things. We've talked about technology incubators. Mr. Blackwell and I think Mr. Mulder, we've talked with folks regarding existing technology incubators over in Greenville, at Clemson, and that is a continuing discussion. There's some opportunities that we currently have, but we will have to invest in order to bring those things to fruition. Finally, one of the things that I'd like to see is continuation of gateway signage. When folks come into Oconee County, they know that they're entering into a nice place, and I think the first impression they get is the signage, and that's important that we continue to work through that plan and bring it to full fruition. That's all I've got right now, but does anybody else have any other ideas?
No, I would just stress the corridor planning down through there on the traffic as we move forward. And I've heard from, some people don't think that this area has grown, and it has grown in population, but it's more so grown in the amount of cars going up and down our roads, the amount of jobs that we have in here. And as we move forward to this, the planning for traffic and transportation in there, as well as looking at some of the speed limits that we have in here, and maybe there's needs to be some adjustments in that part of that corridor planning to slow this area down. I think somebody told me the average speed on 123, I think this actually came from the Highway Patrol, was somewhere in the 65 to 66 mile an hour, and it's a 55 zone. So I know that I do my best to stay in that 55 range on there, and I feel like sometimes they sit me still. I'm sitting still on there, and there's just not enough officers to keep that down. But that may be something that we need to look at from a safety aspect of there, to maybe appeal for lowering that speed limit for the safety of our citizens through that area as well, part of our corridor plan. And I know we don't decide that speed limit, but I think we can appeal as a county to make that safer.
Yeah, I think
Based
they're
on the
gonna lower
length
that.
of black marks that I've seen on some of those collisions that we've had in that area.
I think as soon as we get this backed up traffic, we won't have to worry about anybody going over the speed limit. All right, next we've got, Scott, do we need any a motion on that or anything? Okay.
Sure, I'll compile all the committee discussions and goals. We'll walk through a facilitated exercise during Friday's meeting with the full council as we look at all the committees' identified goals, and then we'll prioritize them from there.
All right.
We'll have a ranking system and we'll finalize them.
Thank you. Next up, we've got an update on traditional neighborhood development.
Even.
Evening.
Last time we met, you kind of gave us a directive, the planning commission, a directive to create this traditional neighborhood development district. And the planning commission, had some more questions related to that, some more details, that they'd like. Because when I kind of presented them with a kitchen sink approach, because this could very well be a very lengthy, zoning district. If we start looking at, street widths, sidewalk widths, street trees, street furniture, porch orientation, things of that nature. The planning commission would like a little more details, maybe some things that, are essential for the district that you all, have in your mind's eye. This is the representation of it. And then after kind of sitting through tonight's meeting, Utica actually represents the structure, the bones of the traditional neighborhood development, small lots, small streets, interconnected network kind of thing. So maybe there's some kind of play off that we can utilize as well. But do you all have anything just essential, like something that if it didn't come across to council with it, it's a non-starter? Is there anything of that nature that you can think of offhand?
I don't think so.
I think paying attention to kind of what else is out there right now that seems to be very popular. If you look on the Clemson side of things, the Patrick Square seems to be coming in, and we're not talking about changing subdivisions out there with this. This is a new development coming in that we look to. I guess not only would it be the ability to design a traditional neighborhood development, but also look at incentivizing through infrastructure and things like that. Is that kind of what I'm understanding, what we're looking at? Because this is not it would be a new project,
Yes, sir.
correct? So a fresh piece of land, new project, this would be what this traditional neighborhood development would design on that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It'd be something you'd have to choose to go into.
Right, I just want people to understand that if we're looking at a classification, this is not reclassifying something that's out there. This would be a decision by the developer to go down this route of traditional neighborhood development plan that we have in there. I just want to make sure that we had that clear.
Yes, sir. That is
Okay.
correct.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just, and I'm not trying to supplant what Mr. Chapman's saying, just add to it some, having sat in on the commission, planning commission meetings. When it was brought to them by Mr. Chapman, he had a very detailed traditional neighborhood template for them to consider. And I think, pushback's not the right word, but something that was so all-encompassing wasn't received with a whole lot of vigor. A whole lot of vigor from the planning commission. So I think when it was discussed again last week, the notion was, all right, well, let's see what your committee really wants. Because that is what we can bring to the planning commission and have them vote on. By that I mean, all right, the essentials are, what Mr. Chapman was speaking to, the essentials are, we want small lots, we want such amount of green space, we want sidewalks. Those are the non-negotiables. And then if you talk about sidewalk furniture, you talk about certain kind of plantings and all of this, those are things that, may or may not be as important. The reason I bring it forward that way is because I think there's some reluctance on the planning commission's part, and I don't want to speak for them, but just to try to coordinate everyone, get us all on the same page, some reluctance to be too specific and too, draconian is not the right word, but make it so overburdensome for anyone who wants to fit it in there, that have to tuck it tightly into this very specific plan. So I think that's what Mr. Chapman was going to, or what are y'all's essentials that you're looking for?
What were the objections? What were the overbearing portions of the sample? Was it like the Patrick Square?
It was more or less, like Patrick Square is a 54-page development standard, and I didn't
Okay.
present them with a 54-page development standard, but it did start off with, sidewalks shall encompass, should everywhere, street trees, the right-of-way should be shorter, fences, things that really were a lot more, you're doing a lot more, which in other counties and other areas, like, you're doing those things but Oconee County does not necessarily have that. So it would be a much larger, much more in-depth, much more precise zoning district. And that, I feel, was probably some of the reticence of the planning commission to move forward with that.
So to be clear, the reason that I put this on, I brought it up, was because a developer said, we can't build a Patrick Square-like development in Oconee County because you don't have that type of zoning district. So I'm not pushing for this, but the developer said, if you ever want, and it's a very well-respected developer, if you ever want that type of development in Oconee County, you don't wait for us to come to you and ask to change the code. You need to change the code so we can do it. And maybe the planning commission needs to understand that. I'm not pushing for this because I want it. I'm pushing for this because the developer said, I can't build a Patrick Square-like type development. So if it's too detailed, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of frustrating, but
I think the basic components of a traditional neighborhood are these. Interconnected, tighter streets, okay? So to allow for a grid pattern design or a connectivity design, right now our code, it generates cul-de-sacs and long runs before you have an intersecting street for safety. So I think one of the biggest components of a T&D is gridded, interconnected, shorter streets, tighter streets. okay? Number two, you're gonna work on actually pushing your homes to a smaller front setback. You're gonna want them closer to the road. You're gonna definitely want sidewalks constructed, within the right-of-way, street lights, a required landscaping plan along the front of the road, okay?
Drainage.
You're gonna want, well, it's gonna be required anyway. A mixture of housing types. You're gonna want not low income, but your starter homes, your less than 150,000 cottages on up to your, $500,000 multi-story, homes. You're gonna want tighter lots. I mean, those are your basic concepts. You're gonna want to replace density with green space, right? So you're gonna push your density down and tighten it down and then have a community area. One of the things that has happened over time is we have made our own personal private space so much better than the personal space. We've lost a sense of community. I've had somebody tell me a long time ago that the demise of the American society will be when we stop putting front porches on our houses, because nobody hangs out there anymore. And when people walk down the street, the houses are so far away and there's no sidewalk that they can't really say hey to their neighbors. Well, they're not even out there anyway because they're locked in their public space. So the idea behind a T&D is to generate a sense of community and push people outside into a common area. So I think you're going to want to see a push for higher density in exchange for common green space. And that common green space is usually generated around a commercial area, right? A square of some kind. You're going to want to see a requirement of recreational facilities in that common area. You want families to be able to walk down to the park and hang out and watch the kids play without having to get in their car, drive out on the road, and go to a city park somewhere else, which is congesting the roadways. To me, and I don't know if I've forgotten any, but those are your basic elements of a T&D. Slow the traffic down, tighten the streets, gridded patterns, houses closer to the road, common space, green space, in exchange for a higher density number. Pretty much it. So, I mean, if you work on those frameworks, I think you'll start to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. What they've got is architectural standards, color standards.
Commercial
mailbox standards. I mean, they've got everything built in. Into that 50-something page document. But,
Right.
yeah, you know more about this than I do. I mean, that's the basic concept of a traditional neighborhood development, right?
Yes, sir. And that inherently will make it a much more lengthy document. So, as long as this committee is okay with that, the hesitance comes from creating such a big document or a big zoning code, and it goes up to county council, and they're like, no, we don't want this, and, it's been several meetings or however many months worth of work, so.
Yeah.
As long as there's that included, in that, as long as there's that kind of backstop of we're not gonna go through the effort without it, being supported, that's a big concern of
Mr.
theirs.
Chapman, there's never guarantee of that with this
Of course.
council.
I think some other things to note on there is with this traditional neighborhood, there's a lot more rear parking going on rather than having the garage parking. You have your rear garages set up in there. And I think there's only one other community that I know that's working through that, but that's a whole nother, thing that they're looking for on there.
Or you could have front-loaded driveways
Yeah.
with shared driveways between two different houses with the rear parking.
Right.
So the drive comes between them and they
Goes
go
to the
left and
back.
right into their driveway. So I mean, you don't have to have the alleyways behind a pure alleyway for loading your garage in the back. You can have front-loaded. It's kind of neat to be out there with the kids on the bike and and playing in the chalk on the driveway and everybody out there. So you can do it either way, and I think that's kind of what they're looking at is, are we gonna, do we have to have rear-loaded houses with alleyways? No, we don't.
Yeah. And I think some of the design of that comes back to the developer as well. And I think, again, we're trying to be more friendly to development, not vice versa. If it's a 60-acre tract of land and he's wanting, the small houses, medium houses in there, that's kind of what it's almost like we're going back to the days on there. And there's a lot of people that thought that Patrick Square wouldn't be as popular as it is. And I don't know if you've been in there lately, but, it's one of the most popular places in there, but it's controlled because, you know, you'd worry about the amount of traffic coming through there, but it's really controlled with a lot of the things that they've done in there, the entry and the exits, not on those front roads. The only people driving on the front roads are people that's looking at property and different things like that, so. But I know the commercial development of that is a lot of what that document is on there, so.
I mean, what are the, you know, you went to school for this. I'm not a trained planner. I just know that the developer said, I would like to do one of those in Oconee County one day, but I can't because the code isn't there for me to do it. What are the essential elements that we need to have, in there?
Modification to our road ordinance.
Okay,
We can't even approve that type of neighborhood road system. We can't. Our ordinance doesn't even allow them. Now, we're looking at our road ordinance right now, as a matter of fact, to modify it. Our setback requirements won't allow that type of development, I don't think. That's pretty much it. I mean, those are the two biggest ones. Density, I think, will be an issue.
They are, but if it has that commercial element, and that's why I think that's the question, if it has a commercial element, we do have a mechanism to do a district PDD, where you can have those mixed uses, and we can work with the developer, where it's very, not developer driven, but developer works the plan out with council, and they can tailor it that way. Versus something that, all right, this is your template, you gotta fit it in there. That's the question, really. And then also, commercial, we have a mixed use, we have that in place, versus just something that's residential, which is, I think, what the focus was here, because we have that mechanism for commercial already.
Question, what is there about the roads that's gotta be reworked to where it falls in?
Well, for example, right now, you have to have up to 200 feet between intersecting roadways along one particular road. Well, most of your gridded traditional neighborhood patterns have a shorter distance of that between the different road intersections, because if you're knocking those lot sizes down, you're gonna be able to fit more houses into a smaller area than, say, what we have.
Yeah, but the 200 feet, I think it's gonna have to be more than that, because I was in Patrick's Square, and they're more than 200 feet.
It may be, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what
I
I'm
haven't
saying,
been in
it's gonna
Patrick
have to be 300, 400, I don't think 200 feet between intersections is gonna be, that's gonna put you with maybe 3 houses at the most between roads. So what I'm saying is, it probably 400 feet or more.
Not if the lot sizes are smaller. That's the difference. You're sacrificing the larger linear footage of lot size, and you may be looking at 30 foot of linear footage on your front property line versus 100 or 50. So you'll be able to fit more houses in to that particular distance than you would under a traditional neighborhood format.
But that 30 or 40 that you're talking about is a front setback, is that not right?
No, I'm talking about linear footage of your front property line on the roadway.
I don't see one being 30 feet.
I have.
Well, I've done in Patrick Square and laid a house out, and it wasn't no 30 feet.
Well, again, you're talking about Patrick Square specifically. There's many different types of T&Ds out there that have been deployed in a neighborhood format. Baxter's one, they're all over North Carolina, Davidson, Cornelia. There's plenty to choose from. But again, the concept of how our ordinance requires you to lay your road system out will not let you do a traditional neighborhood style development. It just won't.
Okay.
well, surely there's some essential element, I mean, obviously that needs to be rectified before we can put it in place, but it sounds like Mr. Root's
Well,
working
not
on that.
necessarily. In your T&D, you have a different standard for your roads
Okay.
versus some of your other ones. It's almost like a PDD
Yeah,
type development.
except it's it's stated in the code by the county versus a developer coming in and say, we'd like to do this.
And your reverse S curves, I think, or whatever they call those things, and your, K values, your percent grades, all those things don't lend itself to, especially with our topography, to be able to fit this type of development in. Too many modifications have to be made to the land in order to fit into our ordinance is made for more of just a rural road somewhere, not a neighborhood. We're applying rural road standards to neighborhoods is what we're
Right.
doing. We don't have a subdivision neighborhood set of road standards, and that's what we have to develop.
Yeah.
And the restrictions on this could be more, I mean, obviously, this is a costly type of development, but the hope is that the amount of homes in that area per, I guess, whatever the developer is, because this is pretty expensive. You gotta have sewers, not a septic system. It's gonna be a sewer-based system in there. Obviously water, but that's always the easy one, most of the time. So, and again, just so we stress that this is a new development for new, future neighborhood development in there.
Bottom line is, I didn't bring this up. Somebody
No.
told me if we wanted to have this type of development, we have to have the code in place
I
first.
just like to be clear in this
Yeah,
county that
it's
this
not
is
coming from this
new
council.
development.
But is there a way, maybe you can look at what are the minimum standards, like clearly density or lot size or roads, those standards? I don't think we're worried about paint scheme or, maybe the developer can say, well, we're gonna do this paint scheme and we check the box. But I don't think the design standards of houses, I don't think that's really that's not what I'm concerned about. Or certain plannings. I think it's more so the ability, I don't know. I haven't read through one of these plans before.
So like the why Utica fits where it is, it's however many houses per acre. It's a very densely populated area. And that was done because everyone was walking to the mill. We don't have that, and that's why things didn't naturally evolve like that here and elsewhere. What we could also look at is doing something along the lines of the PDD that we have, because Peshawar was done as a PDD, but they integrated commercial with it. So what we're doing is just residential. What we're looking at for this TD is just residential, correct?
The Patrick Square is residential and commercial.
That's correct. And so we
Yeah.
could do that through the
I think
PDD.
you want to allow it, not
Right.
require it.
Correct.
I
Yeah,
think is the
yeah.
answer. I mean, I don't think it's something we want to require, but at least allow somebody to have a mixed-use development within that T and D PDD.
We can do that now.
Yeah.
with the mixed use.
Right.
So if your developer said I can't do it, and he had a commercial element,
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
So clearly the market is demanding this type of development. There's demand. People want to live in a Patrick Square type of development. I'm sorry, we keep harping on Patrick
No,
Square, but
it's
that's what we're all
close
familiar with.
one,
So I don't know what it takes to allow that in our community, but I would hate to get stuck in the weeds and say, well, we can't do it because it's too restrictive. Again, I'm not pushing for this because I necessarily want this type of development. I'm pushing for this because the market is demanding this type of development, and the developer says, I can't do it if y'all don't have the code in place. So,
And we may have to tweak this as that development comes into there that we're allowing. I mean, obviously we got some changes in there.
yeah, and I'm sorry that the planning commission's so hesitant to
Did you want to speak?
send anything back to us because it's just, they're worried that we're not gonna accept it. Yeah, that's fine.
If we're gonna allow commercial in this classification, could we not, tweak the PDD to where it could be done under that classification rather than creating a whole new one? I mean, if we're gonna allow both aspects of it, I mean, we're just gonna do the residential part, then maybe we do need a whole new classification, but can we not just tweak the PDD to where we can do this and not have to go through a whole different?
I asked the developer the same thing. And what I'm gonna do, I'm obviously just gonna have the developer come in, because he's worked on these type of things, and explain why that wouldn't work, because that's what I suggested. I said, well, you already have a PDD, why don't you just use that? Well, it won't work. So,
Setbacks, roads, what you're talking about.
density,
It's,
Yeah,
that right there is the reason to move forward with that, right? Is that what?
maybe the developer, I'll ask him to maybe come to the planning commission meeting, or however that's appropriate, or if he needs to come in here and explain to us, so then we can direct the planning commission, I don't know.
Don't just have him give me a call, Adam,
I'll have,
sit down and talk
I'll have
with
to give
him.
you a call.
You pay me to do a job.
That's true. I know.
Tell
I
him to call
know.
my office, Adam and I will sit down with him and he can spill his guts.
That sounds good.
Give them something to do.
Fine.
Thank you. Anything else on that, Mr. Chapman? Well, that's maybe the cleanest way to take care of that.
No, sir, but Utica is also our model in-house, if we want to keep using, if we want to keep looking at developments, I mean, if we're going to put emphasis on Patrick Square, Utica is an excellent model of it with the mill and everything, the commercial that used to be there, so.
Right, okay, thank you, sir. All right, next we have discussed clarification of certain code sections bearing on land use and development as contained in chapters 26, 32, and 38 of the Oconee County Code of Ordinances.
It's me
Oh,
again.
still here.
Me again.
Oh, sorry.
Through the last 6 to 8 months, we've kind of developed a list of things that keep popping up that are either unanswered, strange, or why is this here? And things that citizens have generated, things that other departments have generated, things that we've just popped up with. So there's 18 items on this clarification list that range from, like, well, why is that like that? For instance, like the planning commission is supposed to name subdivisions, there's the final responsibility for that. We have 2 definitions for the word lot. So these are issues that staff brought up to the planning commission. The planning commission said, yes, these are issues. And the question is, do you all see issues in these things as well? Would these be things for us to correct? So we can go through them item by item if you like. I can point out the ones that could be more contentious than others. However you all would like to go about that. But do you all see the issue? That's the big thing. Planning commission sent here to see if there's issues.
Yeah,
with this.
and that was emailed out to, I assume, members of the whole committee previously. I saw that, yeah, and I did review it, and I don't know if the committee's had the rest of the members have had an opportunity to review it, but there's clearly issues where lots defined differently in 2 different places in our code. That obviously needs to be clarified, well, fixed. So what's the best way to fix it? Does the planning commission want to give us recommendations, or do you have recommendations, or should we discuss them right now? I mean, problem is, we're going to be here for 2 hours if,
We don't need to do one.
okay.
Sure. I got a question.
Sir,
When did you decide we didn't need right-of-way into a property? A road frontage?
well, you look at number 15,
Well,
sir?
Just to refresh your memory, I had a surveyor call
Oh,
me.
number 1.
And you turned down a plat for him because it didn't have road right-of-way or didn't have access to the road.
Yes, sir.
And now I see that we've changed that.
No, sir, it was a misunderstanding. I was incorrect. I did talk to, that's from Pioneer, right? Yes, that's how, I spoke to him again after that.
But anyway, what I'm saying is, a piece of property doesn't necessarily have to have access to, right-of-way access.
It doesn't have to have a platted easement, sir.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine, I just wanna make sure we were clear on that.
Yes, sir.
What all we were talking about was the property down at Chickasaw Point. When they first surveyed it, they didn't survey to the core line. They left a 20-foot gap. And the Property Owners Association told the people that bought those lots, they would give them that property if they had it surveyed. And if you had lots 6, and you've got that part surveyed and it was put on your plat and called 6A, they turned down one of them because of that, because it didn't have road access, even though it's coming through track 6, and that's what, we've got that ironed out now.
Why wouldn't they just resurvey them together?
They did, they had 6 and 6A.
But it wouldn't be a 6 and 6A if you just merged them all into one.
It would
lot.
if you wanted to convey it.
So
It's gotta be deeded.
The Chickasaw could deed it to the homeowner.
Right.
The homeowner should just have it replatted into one parcel.
Well, most time you need a plat to have it deeded from the homeowners association. That was the part that we were talking about. Later on, you could make it
One parcel.
one, yeah, but it would, you've gotta have that 6A to have a deed trail first.
But if that's just a step in the process, it shouldn't have been a problem for them just to combine it and not have to worry about public road access.
Yes, sir.
Is this,
That's what we've got ironed out before the planning commission was stopping that.
Was this on the list of those
It's number
code
one,
sections?
actually.
Number 15?
15.1.
No, that's not it. I think
Okay.
that's
All
It's
right.
on the
Just
list.
making
Nu-
sure it's on the
num-
list.
Number one's
Okay.
the access. That actually, the first thing that popped up was the access to the parcels because it was, it's actually kind of like number 3, the 0.57 acres. It was anecdotally known as of course you have to have a platted easement to get to property. And it's up to the state does not require it. The state surveying board I talked to, they do not require a platted easement to go from one piece of property to another. However, there's legal ways to go about it. So the question for that would be, should the county institute those land use restrictions that, in fact, a survey does have to show an easement? Other counties have it, some don't, some do. So that's just a question.
I don't necessarily think so, but if they're going to build on it or develop it or do something to it, it would have to have some type of access.
Correct,
For
versus just some.
emergency services to be able to get there, obviously, if there's a fire or something like that, but just to have a carved piece of land.
Chairman, if I could. And I
Yes.
think that underscores all these issues. The format was, we had all of these that were issues, problems, things that come up consistently before community development. And so community development brought them to the planning commission. Do y'all agree these are issues? Planning commission says yes, send them to y'all. Do y'all see anything, objection, take it off, it's not an issue? Or yes, it is, they're all issues. If so, then Mr. Chapman, I'll work with him, we'll work up potential fixes to all of these. They're gonna go back to the planning commission, they're gonna go through that, then to full council, so we've got several steps left, and if y'all have read over them, and you don't see anything that you have other questions about, like Mr. Hart's issue or whatever, then we'll take them back with some potential fixes to the planning commission.
Do we need a motion to ask the planning commission to do that?
You do not.
Okay.
We're good.
If there are issues for you, obviously, different definitions of the same word are huge problems, and there's some lower priority issues in there as well. But I think we need to make it as easy as possible for folks, both in our county government side, to understand how to apply the code, as well as developers and builders to know how to comply with the code. So whatever makes it easier on both parties. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Thinking back about the planning commission, they sent it to you for consideration, so if you could make a motion to send it back to the planning commission for fixes. That was just something that
So
would be
moved.
great.
Second.
Any discussion?
Do you all have any suggestions for any of these things? Please let planning commission know over the course of time.
Well, the problem is, it's gonna take so long to go through each one of those, that we may need to have we just had a really stacked agenda tonight, and we may just have to have a separate meeting regarding those if planning commission can't get some,
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't mind sending, an email to, Adam or the planning commission itself of issues that I have with it and let them address it from there.
Okay.
As other council members that may not be on here may have issues with those as well, and then they can take those emails and then go from there and put them together.
Yeah,
Okay.
more input the merrier, yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Good job. All right, Mr. Blackwell, economic development update. And I'm sorry that this meeting is, thank you, I'm sorry this meeting is going so long. It's just,
Having a good time, man.
unfortunately, a lot to talk about.
You said it was gonna be jam-packed and interesting. It's been good.
Thank you.
That's unreasonable.
All righty, members of council, thank you for having me tonight at the Planning and Economic Development Committee. Also want to say thank you to Mr. Mulder, Mr. Root, and also the clerk for the support over the many, many years and moons to get us where we are today. As you know, the Oconee Economic Alliance, you see the different logos there. That is who we are. That is your economic development entity focused on various initiatives, whether it's Made in Oconee, the NOW program, which is a manufacturer's academy in the school district, the entrepreneurial support, Think Oconee, and also Destination Oconee. The next slide kind of talks about, again, who we are. It is our role to really focus on having Oconee County be the location of choice for investment decisions. That is our mission. Those investment decisions are both industrial, residential, commercial, spending habits. We want people to spend money in our community. We want people to invest in our community to get us where we want to be. Our core objectives, how we accomplished getting to those investment decisions, are focusing on diversifying our economy all across the board, whether it's automotive, plastics, healthcare-related initiatives, more office space, technology-type jobs, residential, getting more commercial in here. Everything that goes into a vibrant economy, we want it here in Oconee County. The second thing is we develop competitive assets. Thank you to your leadership and your funding over the years. We have 4 industrial parks. 1 is full, 3 are in different stages of development, but that's what it's all about, developing competitive assets to compete not only in the 85 corridor, but also globally. Nurturing strategic partnerships, working with our friends all across the board here in the county, whether it is our colleagues, our teammates in county government, to the cities, to the school district, to anybody that touches economic development. We want to work together. We accomplish a whole lot more by working together. So we want to foster those partnerships and work together. The last thing is telling our story. Nobody can tell our story better than us. So we do work very hard on all the different mediums to get our message out there. Switching gears slightly, talk about successes where the rubber meets the road. 2017, as you know, was a very strong year. We had over 365 new jobs. Brings our running total for the last 5 years to nearly 1,500 new jobs coming into the community. In 2017, we had $153 million in new taxable investments. That brings our running total since 2012 to over $432 million in new taxable investments. Those represent 32 new economic development projects since 2012. Looking at our labor participation, it's dropped a full percentage point since July of 2017 to the most recent number, which was December of 2017, to 4.1%. One thing to note, really what's special if you look at those reports from DEW, is the number of people working in Oconee County. These are Oconee County citizens working. It's at an all-time high, over 33,927. Again, we've never seen that number ever, and I'll say ever once again. That's something to pat yourselves on the back. That's a credit to many, many people and a credit to this community. Again, more people are working today than ever before in the history of the community. One thing to kind of note, if you read the Department of Employment and Workforce data that comes out on a monthly basis, one thing that we looked at is what you see before you there. From December of 2016 to December of 2017, so a full year, 12 months, we had more gain in employment growth. Again, people with jobs, citizens with jobs. We had a net gain of 720. Our friends in Pickens had a net gain of 130. Our friends in Anderson had a net gain of 270. So we had more net job gain than the other 2 communities combined. I think that says a lot. As you're talking about workforce housing, different types of housing development stock, commercial development, this is a big reason. You talk about traffic. Again, more people are working than ever before. We've had more job growth than ever before. So a lot of positives on that front. Switching gears, I do want to touch on Vermont, a new company that's located in the incubator in downtown Walhalla. We have a company that is headquartered in, I'll say this wrong, but I'll say Tours, France. My French is a little bad. But one thing to note is it's the first soft landing pad win in a rural community in the state of South Carolina. We would not have won that development, that project, if it wasn't for the incubator. So again, thank you to council, thank you to Mr. Mulder for the vision in putting that into place. And now we've got a company that's from France in downtown Walhalla doing business. They make goodness gracious,
An ultrasound transducer?
Ultrasound, thank you, goodness. It is an ultrasound piece of equipment that's
It's on your
more.
presentation, that's how I know.
That's more to inspect the integrity of a weld. So in, oil rigs and the nuclear industry, they're using that ultrasound equipment again to inspect the integrity of a weld. It is on the presentation. I should just read from that. Again, talking about the economic development successes that we've had, that you've had, the next slide shows the FELO growth. We've had a net gain of $1.3 million to the county. Again, not all that comes to county government. That is split amongst various sources, including the school district. But that's the result of $153 million in 2017, over $432 million since 2012. That's the result. That $1.3 million is again, in the property taxes. That's 27 FELO deals that we now have on the record. One thing that we kind of keep track of in partnership with the auditor and DOR, Department of Revenue, is so out of those 27 FELO deals, contractually, they have to invest $434 million. They've actually invested $698 million. So when you see a company say, yes, I'm going to invest whatever it may be, $5 million, $20 million, they always go above and beyond. We want them to be in compliance, and they're in compliance when they hit that number that's in the agreements that Mr. Root works on, but they always go above and beyond. So again, there's a difference between actual and announcements. Same thing with job growth. Just because a company says, I'm going to hire 20, they generally hire a lot more. So always be mindful of that. Switching the slides there, the manufacturer's depreciation reimbursement that comes from the state back to the county, again, that's increased over $240,000 in the last few years. That's recurring revenue coming in. With that, I do want to pause slightly and come back to some more economic development updates around product. I do want to introduce Janet Hartman to talk about some of the downtown initiatives that you spoke about, Mr. Davis. She's going to give you an update on the progress being made on that front. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Hartman.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, gentlemen. Great meeting, and it's kind of like an intro to some of the things that I'm going to talk about. But as Richard said, our team's been very busy, and one of the facets of that is the Destination Oconee Plan. I wanted to briefly talk about a few of the initiatives in our downtowns. As Mr. Davis spoke, it's very important to have that quality of life, our downtowns being vibrant and having places for folks to go as we continue to increase the number of people coming into our community. So some of the initiatives in working in the last couple of years that I've been here with the cities of Walhalla, Westminster, and Seneca, they have all either formed or reactivated their development corporations. So they're starting to look at ways that they can put some emphasis in their downtowns. We've been very active with that, with incentive plans. Walhalla specifically has adopted a facade grant program, and they have awarded 5 grants out of that initiative already in the year of 2017. So some great things happening in our downtowns, and we're continuing to work on business recruitment. So we've identified what do we have in our downtowns, what are we lacking in the downtowns, and so we're starting to put together some business recruitment initiatives to start building that nucleus of small businesses in our downtowns. The next initiative that is not new to the rest of, or to any of you here in this room, the next slide, is our Think Oconee program. This really has become just a mind changer for a lot of folks. It's that positive, how do I do something to help our community? So it's really become a commonplace. You hear people say Think Oconee a lot, and to think back to where we were in October of 2016 when we kicked this off, we've done some really great things. Think Oconee Thursday was an initiative we did last fall, and then now this year we've incorporated Give Oconee within the Think Oconee initiative to help our nonprofits. So Think Oconee's expanded beyond just a buy local program. The next slide identifies the different promotional items that we have started had started a couple of years ago giving out, and it's really just taken off. People are really having fun with it. You're seeing our shopping bags all over the place. You're seeing our car decals and those types of things. The pop socket is the newest and latest and greatest. If you don't have one, let me know. I'll make sure I get one to you. But a couple of slides just to show you some of the outreach that we've done. Again, when we started, it was really a strong push to let folks know what is Think Oconee. We went to a number of different events and promoted what Think Oconee is and what the great things we had in store for the county. Next slide shows the continual outreach. We've partnered with the farmers market, the recycling centers, in getting more than just a buy local feel out there with the Think Oconee. So when you go to the recycling centers, you're seeing the Think Oconee the banners hung on the fences. The last one, another Think Oconee, and also promoting Oconee County. One of the things I heard earlier was the importance of our gateways into our community. And one of the things I think sometimes we forget is the airport is really one of those gateways for us. So we have partnered with the airport crew, and we've done a couple events out there. The most recent, we did a welcome to, it was a morning of a Clemson game, and we did a welcome to the folks who were flying in for that game. We did a few things in Orange to help them know that they were not only coming to a Clemson game, but they were in Oconee County. So it's real important what those first impressions are. And as we have those folks coming into our community, we want to be welcoming and just have that outreach with them. So one of the things at the airport, we hope to continue to do some of these welcoming events, but also to increase the signage and possibly look at some gateway signage out there as well. Next, I want to just quickly talk about the Great Oconee Cleanup. I know that's also not new to you folks, but this was a great initiative that took place last year, the first annual, I said when I reported on that last year, and it was the first annual because the second annual will be coming up this Earth Day, April 21st. So I believe there's something in your packets for that. But this has become really kind of a personal interest of mine. Granted, if you read things, you see a lot of discussion about litter, and I think it's everyone's personal responsibility to step up and do our part. So one of the things we're doing, again, partnering with the different organizations. Quickly, we'll run through the couple of slides. Last year on Earth Day weekend, we did the spring edition, which was those 5 organizations coming together, Highway 123 from the county line into Seneca city limits, 2,300 pounds of litter, 200 volunteers. The fall edition was done on Highway 11 south from 123, or actually Highway 24 down to exit 1. They had 62 volunteers, 790 pounds of litter. So keeping the tally. Next, we moved into the Downtown Challenge with the cities, with the 4 cities participating, 3,500 pounds of litter. So in those 3 initiatives alone, over 6,000 pounds of litter was collected. And there's more going on a regular basis with the Adopt a Highway, Adopt a Spot that COBA and our friends there take care of. So this is an initiative we're going to continue to work on and continue to support and continue to promote. And as I said, the second annual Great Oconee Cleanup is on April 21st. It's a Saturday of Earth Day, and that will be focusing on Highway 11, north from Blue Ridge Electric Co-op. So in closing, I'll talk about some of the things that are coming, what we're working on in 2018. As Mr. Blackwell mentioned, as far as wayfinding signage, we're looking at doing, continuing that gateway and branding into the community. When people come into Oconee County, we want them to know, yes, they are here, and we'll continue with the brand going forward on our wayfinding signs to locate, help them locate those tourism assets much easier. So we're hoping that first phase will take place quite soon. We'll continue with the Think Oconee initiative, as I said, with the litter pickup. We're doing some partnering with the recycling centers, maybe to do some additional signage out there. So it's a little easier when folks go in to know where certain things go, what we do take, what we don't take, those types of things. To us, Destination Oconee is that program of providing cohesiveness and strengthening our downtowns, and I think bringing in a number of partners has really helped us do that. And working, the one other item I have listed on here is municipal leader roundtables. We're 6 times a year, we're going to pull all the mayors and city administrators together and talk about what's going on in their specific areas. How can we help? I just think there's synergy when we all get together. We can all do similar things. It's just specific to each area in each municipality, but it does work when we all come together and work on those things. So we've got some great things going with Destination Oconee, with community planning and community development, and we appreciate the support you've given us so far.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Janet, for your leadership, and what she didn't say is she deserves a lot of credit for what you just saw with the downtown cleanup, the cleanup initiative on 123, things going on in downtown. That didn't just magically happen. It wasn't like rain. Getting the cities to focus on ordinances and zoning and things like that. I do appreciate everything that she's done for us and will continue to do. Before we talk about product development, one thing I failed to mention, inside the incubator, another thing to take credit for is there's 10 businesses in there. I think a lot of people forget that. Yes, Vermont is in there, but they're one of 10 businesses that, again, would not have been in downtown Walhalla if it wasn't for the leadership on council and also Mr. Mulder. So again, thank you for that. Product development, something that is always keeping us busy. If we're not picking up litter, we're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about fiber ready. We are the first industrial park in upstate South Carolina to be certified fiber ready by our friends at AT&T. This is another feather in our cap that will help the marketability of our Seneca Rail Park to future industrial prospects. So that was a good thing that took us a couple of months to work on. Thank you again to Mr. Root for his help in getting that over the goal line. I think I mentioned last time, or I know some of you are well aware of, recently the Oconee Economic Alliance secured a grant through the Department of Commerce in the amount of $256,000. I'll show you what that's applied to here in a second, but I do want to thank the staff for helping to get that done, and obviously for Commerce for getting that money. I mean, that's 100% funding. That's not a 1-to-1 match, 2-to-1, anything like that. That's money that we fought for and won to put forth. And another thing I'll touch on is the $1.2 million grant that we secured through LAR. Thanks to Mr. Ritter for her help in getting that, and I'll touch on that in a minute with a OITP update. So the next slide, what are we using $256,000 on? Well, on your agenda, March the 6th, I hope you will approve the bid item that is going to release a timber crew, land clearing crew, to do work on what you see there. That is the Seneca Rail Park, covered up in trees. There is some value in that timber. Given that we were able to get the bid to come in under what we estimated, we had an engineer kind of do a cost estimate that looked at, this is going to cost $170,000, and knock on wood, lucky for us, it is only coming in at $105,000. And if you approve it on March the 6th, they will start on March the 7th, and they have until June the 1st to be done with that. But you can see we are leaving a buffer. I know that may be a little hard to see from your seats. It is in your packet. We are leaving a little bit of a buffer to be a good neighbor to our friends behind us along, I think that's Moore and Owens Road, and then also kind of fronting Shiloh Road there. So it'll be very impactful to walk that site, allow a prospect to see from one side to the next. So we are cutting the trees first. And then second, on the next slide, we are continuing to move forward with the road installation. We are out getting the necessary permits from our friends at Duke and Fort Hill and many, many others to get this into place. We look to start this in June and be done by the end of August with this road installation that you see there. Good project. Again, that is being funded via a grant that we were awarded through the South Carolina Power Team. And we were able to find some pennies and various couches throughout the offices and match that $350,000 grant with another $350,000. So again, essentially no money's coming from the general fund. The other portion of the grant of the 256 is to pay for a new sign. This is just a concept. Don't get mad or get excited about what you see there, because we are going to have a gentleman from Seaman Whiteside develop 3 designs that we're going to bring to you full council and let you choose which of the 3 designs you like. But this is just a concept, just a mock-up. Within the $250,000 grant from Commerce, we're thinking this sign will cost about $80,000. May come in under, comes in a little over, that's okay too. As you heard, we got a little bit of wiggle room within that grant. But again, we will bring the design concepts to you and allow you to approve that. And at the next slide, you see within Golden Corner, it'll go, if you go up the entrance road, it'll be on the left-hand side. I think most people are well aware on the right-hand side, right there beside the entrance road along Highway 59, is a little bit of a wetlands issue. You kind of see that with that brownish kind of color there. So this will go on the left-hand side of the entrance road. Again, not sure what it'll look like. Don't know if it'll be horizontal or more vertical, but it will be impactful. You will be able to see it as you come down Highway 59 from the interstate. So what you see there is the spec building project. Thank you for your patience. It has been a long process. Even our attorney that's representing the OEA, it's been so long that his wife had a baby. So it's taken us some time to get this pushed over the goal line. But we've had a lot of issues. I appreciate the help of Mr. Root from the county side. A gentleman from Haynesworth Sinclair Boyd is representing us. From the OEA side, we have a couple of attorneys involved at Santee Cooper. They too, from Santee Cooper, had a medical issue. So we've had a lot of hurry up, stop, start, snow events in Moncks Corner, snow events in Oconee County. But we're almost there. I fully anticipate this closing within the next 2 weeks is what I'm told. But please don't hold your breath around that subject. Just know that it is being worked on by many, many people, and we're all focused on the same goal, and that is to get it done. We are going to close on the real estate portion and the loan transaction at the same time. We've already got everything on our side, meaning the county, kind of solidified, so we are really and truly waiting on our legal friends, no offense to Mr. Root or Mr. Kane, to agree to Senate structure and kind of get this put to bed, so to speak. That spec building will be 50,000 square feet, expandable to 100,000 square feet. Our anticipation is we will get the money in March or shortly thereafter. We will go out to bid and hopefully start construction, if not April, certainly in May. It should only take 6 months for this building to be built. Therefore, we will have a building inside Golden Corner by the end of this calendar year. That has been our goal, and that remains our goal. The next slide kind of shows you just a rendering of the road work. I do appreciate Kyle Reed and his team for their patience. I wish they could get out there and do more work. You see in the next slide, they have made a lot of progress, but unfortunately, it is saturated out there with moisture, either from snow events, ice to rain every other day. They cannot string together really any consecutive days for the site, number one, to dry out, and then number two, to remobilize and get on site to finish the road work. They have done a whole lot. They're still, I think, last time I talked to Kyle, maybe about 50% done. But again, we are at the mercy of Mother Nature. But hopefully, with the sunshine and spring around the corner, they will be able to get back on site ASAP and finish that project. Again, that road installation was funded through the state C funds, $391,000. So I appreciate those individuals for that allocation in helping to pay for that road. The next slide just shows you the grading at OITP. I'm going to show you a short video here in a second, but I want to touch on one issue before she loads that video. But thank you again for a very tough decision in funding the grading work at OITP. You see what it's yielded us. So we have a 50,000 square foot pad site, we have an 11-acre site, a 9-acre site, a 10-acre site, and then a flat 49-acre site, and then roughly a 26-acre site. So all being told, we have 6 sites now within OITP, of which all of them except for one is generally flat as a pancake. So again, that helps tremendously with what we're trying to do. Again, developing competitive assets. The next slide, I don't expect you to read what I wrote here, But as Mr. Mulder knows, we had a meeting earlier today to talk about the road situation within OITP. As you heard me say earlier, we were able to receive a LAR grant of $1.2 million from the federal government. So there's a lot of federal strings attached to that that we have to abide by. And along with that, DOT is administering the road improvements. So not only do we have the federal government involved, we have our friends at the state government involved, which equals to slow moving. But you can see everything that the county can control, we have been meeting the different timelines and meeting those targets. We got official notification in July. We were able to sit down, Mr. Ritter and myself went down and met with DOT on October 26th. We got all the plans to them in roughly the first part of November, and it sat there from November really until the last couple of weeks. But it has become a priority issue thanks to Mr. Mulder, Senator Alexander, and others pushing and pulling, and maybe even a few headlocks in between. It is on their radar now, and they are working extremely hard to get this funding in place and to get the design in place and to get the bid out, which they're targeting for June, which would push the actual road installation to sometime most likely in August, if not September, but we don't know that yet. With that being said, I do want you to know that we do have a Plan B in place. Thanks to Mr. Mulder earlier today and our friends from Tri-County Tech and everyone involved with that workforce development campus coming together, we did, hopefully, it's dependent on DOT, put together a Plan B. If this, what you read there, and then the road doesn't come to fruition in a necessary time, we do have an option B, so that August, I think it's the 18th, with that ribbon cutting, and shortly thereafter with classes starting, that is achievable. They will have classes there in August. So be mindful of that we are working on it. I do want to show you a short little video, again, to show you what essentially the citizens have helped to provide and to help pay for through the bond scenario. It's a kind of a short little drone video that our friends from the fire department, we had a fire exercise out there, and they took the video for us, so that's the way we word that. We did not pay for a drone. Did not pay for a drone. Anyone listening out there, we did not pay for a drone. So it is playing. It's a little slow moving. It'll get fast here in a second. And Ms. Smith, at any point, if you want to help speed it up, you can certainly do that. You see Baxter on the right-hand side. That's the entrance going in, as you well know. More so at the very top here. Baxter is doing quite well. They're ahead of schedule with everything that they're doing, thanks to BMW. I think you know they make the inside door panel and the inside trunk panel. They have roughly 65 employees. They're looking to be at 100 employees by the end of the year. They have an expansion pad behind them. That's the former 300,000 square foot pad. I think many of you were at the groundbreaking and you heard Mr. Schulte, the owner of the company, say if it wasn't for that pad, he would not be in Oconee County. So again, thank you for that. We have the 50,000 square foot pad sitting there. That's essentially that gravel box that you see, kind of where we're over right now. That's another site. That's really a 19-acre site. You see the Blue Ridge Electric Substation in the distance. You see the mountains in the distance. Beautiful day in Oconee County, but that's normal for us. As we start to turn here, so I mentioned the one site that is not flat as a pancake. You're essentially looking at it right there. That's still got a little bit of tree canopy on it. But that's okay. We'll get to it in the future. You see that flat 10-acre site there as you're coming across the back side of the property. We do have no wetlands issues on this site. It meets DHEC standards. Don't let anybody tell you different. It drains properly. There's a creek on the back side, so we're being good environmental stewards there. You see another smaller site there. And then as you kind of come across that big site, that's 49 acres. Really nothing like it in the upstate. So We have began to work aggressively to market this property. It's on the radar of our friends at the Department of Commerce, along with the Upstate Alliance, and many others are, again, seeing the site. That is not Janet in the truck there, driving across the site. That's not her.
It looked like her.
You can speed it up because it actually goes to the end of the site. So 49 acres takes a few minutes for it to come across. So as it starts to turn there, you see the other site. That's roughly a 26 acre site. And then you see the Tri-County Tech campus, and you see the road bed. That's where the road's going to go once we get DOT on board. You see that temporary road that we just kind of passed there. That would be the temporary access road to the Tri-County Tech facility. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for that help on showing that video. But I wanted you to see that because it's one thing to drive out there. It's another thing to see it from the air. Again, very impactful. Thank you for that. Last but not least, I do want to put another save the date on your calendar. March the 22nd, we will host a project announcement. Project DART is something that we've been working with the City of Seneca on. A very special announcement on a key area within downtown Seneca. So 5 p.m., March 22nd, at the Seneca Light and Water Facility, we will hold a press event and make an announcement on a cool project coming to Oconee County. With that, I'll be quiet, and myself and/or Janet will answer any questions.
Thank you, Richard and Janet. Obviously, great things happening in Oconee County. Thanks to y'all and the rest of our county staff, including Mr. Mulder, of course. And I appreciate that working through that contingency there. I assume it's a gravel road? No, it's a paved road? Okay. Okay, Plan
It's
B.
Plan B.
We'll leave it there.
That's all you need to know. Plausible deniability is key.
You can drive on it. That's the main thing. You can drive on it.
Since we
Some of the
still own
best
the
roads in
quarry, I'm
Oconee
sure we'll have
County
plenty of
are
gravel.
mud.
That's true.
I tell you, mud roads, I mean, let's go with it.
Do y'all have any?
Yeah, I
I
do.
got a question.
I didn't want to leave out Daja and Emily too. I know they're behind the scenes doing a lot of great stuff and appreciate what they do. And, you know, we're very blessed to have all y'all as part of that, but just especially Richard for all that you do, and, you know, appreciate all that I know Mr. Boulder does with that as well. Appreciate all that he does, and, you know, working together, I think, you know, we got the best team I've ever seen this county have, and appreciate all that y'all do to go in there. Some great initiatives moving forward, and, you know, just to see the amount of jobs and everything that's came through. I think sometimes we hear about, well, I don't see economic development doing anything. and I tell people, I said, you just haven't seen it yet. And I said, it's coming. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. And, you know, besides grading, it seems like that happened overnight. But
That was a quick project.
But I think we've done a lot of good things, and the best is yet to come on this, and the investment's going to start showing, and the fruits of the labor. And really appreciate, like I said, all that y'all all do. Means a lot to us from that.
Thank you.
I want to throw out a question for everybody. Of course, there's three of y'all can maybe answer it. Talking with Mrs. DeRitter, and as I said, that grant is in Davis and Floyd's hand. How is that coming?
It's moving along very, very quickly. Our contract with them actually requires it to be prepared and ready to submit by the deadline of that grant. So we actually built that deadline into the grant. So they're working on it. That's all I can say. I don't know exactly where their ink trail ends right now, but I can tell you that, you know, even their contract requires it to be ready and submitted for the grant application.
Okay.
Yeah, I would echo Mr. Mulder. I mean, Ms. Brock has worked hard last week in getting some documents to them, and as he alluded to, it's the deadline's in the contract, so they will meet that deadline, and we have full faith that they will meet that deadline.
Another question for all three of you. Of course, this would be probably Mr. Root. The Sewer South contract, for us to give that to the Sewer Authority, where are we at with that?
It's probably about 80% done on my part. I need to compile the exhibit that really will make up the bill of sale and the transfer assets and go back over what I've drafted. I've drafted the agreement, but I gotta tighten it back up, and I haven't looped back around to it. I've had another of fires to put out, so I don't wanna put myself on a deadline, but to put myself on a deadline, it should probably go to their attorney next week, middle part of next week, barring anything unforeseen coming up.
This one's for you, Richard. Of course, I've already asked you before, but you may have answered part of it. But the Santee Cooper money, the closure on that, what are we looking for as closing the loan on that?
I really, what I've been told, again, this was before our council, the OEA council, his wife had a baby, so try to contact me today to get an update so I can be factual with you, and unfortunately, his hands were tied. But to answer your question, I've been told within 2 weeks, and I know I've told you that before, and I apologize for that, but, do know that, again, many individuals, from myself to Mr. Root, Mr. Mulder, Santee Cooper's economic development team, their legal counsel, an attorney at Hainsworth Sinclair Boyd, Bagwell Corley law firm, a lot of people are working towards accomplishing what you've set forth. So it is getting done. It is being worked on, and again, within 2 weeks, we fully anticipate both the real estate portion being solved, and that's I don't want to say that's been solved because we haven't had ink dry on the paper, but Mr. Root accomplished that, I would say, 2 months ago, and we've been waiting more for this dual closing, as we've kind of coined it, with the loan transaction. And there's been a few, again, start, stop, with our friends at Santee Cooper for really nothing that we can help, from snow events to sicknesses to childbirths, that has delayed this closing. But again, it'll be closed very, very soon. We'll have our money. We'll have $3 million is the allocation that will go into our bank account, and we will work very, very quickly to get that out to bid. Again, the road project itself is 50% done, but again, that doesn't have to be done for us to start the building construction side of it, because all of the soil is over there that we need to do the finished grade. So it's just a matter of closing, getting out to bid, letting 15 to 30 days go by. I go back to that timeline, roughly end of April, May, you should see a contractor on site going vertical. And then by the end of this year, again, weather permitting, hopefully we won't have a wet summer. We'll get to stand there and cut a ribbon, and hopefully have a building sold ASAP.
One more
That's a long way of answering your question.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
You were showing the slide where the sign would go down there,
Yes.
and you had it going over to the creek and up the creek, and you had part of it being in the wetland.
No, it'll be on the other side of the road. If Ms. Smith can you pull that back up? Maybe not.
It's about the third slide after the video.
Yeah. So if this is the entrance road and you're driving up the entrance road, it's on this side. It's not the wetland
Yeah,
side.
I'm not talking about
It's that side.
the sign. I don't care where the sign's at.
Yep, okay.
I just wanna know, are we giving away part of that wetlands with that tract of land? When we
No.
sell that?
No.
Okay.
No, what we've kind of indexed is roughly a 22 acre site. I'll send you a visual. If you're familiar where the pump station access road is, that's I guess that'd be the southern border of the site. There you go. If you look on it, so it's really, the border is the pump access road, is essentially the border. We are not going into the wetlands. We are not trying to sell somebody beaver dams. We are trying to sell somebody a spec building for the home of industry and jobs and investment.
Okay.
Nor are we, looking to go at where the former pump access road on the northern part of the site was. Again, it's essentially a little bit of that green area that you see inside the pump access road, if that makes sense. Yeah, I wish I could point it out.
When it was shown that way, I just wondered if that was the whole tract.
Oh, no, sir. No,
Okay.
sir. No, sir. We are not including the wetlands.
Okay.
No, sir.
I
That'll
think
be a
one-
home for beavers for many years to come.
One thing to mention, regardless of when the construction is or where we're at, the marketing's already taken place.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think, I want speak a little bit on that, because just because the construction and the building's not there, the idea of a building also brings people to the table. So just so, we're clear on that, yeah, we may be a little bit of delay on that, but we're still far ahead of a lot of other things that are out there now. And I know, you've already got that up and rolling, and appreciate that. And I just wanted to note that because just because something, you don't see it, it's there.
Oh, yeah, to your point, Mr. Davis, we've submitted the spec building on projects, here recently. And we'll close any day now, but you're exactly right. The marketing has started, has continued, and won't stop until it's sold.
Any other questions to prolong this meeting?
Let's have Mr. Davis.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. Thank you all for bearing with us. Sorry this was such a long meeting. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I had one quick thing, real quick. Mr. Adam Chapman, you may have this one. Minimum lot size requirements. We've had some issues in the past. We've gone, and I don't know, one thing that I wanted you to do is to talk with Mr. Mulder a little bit on the tiny lots that we have from time to time pop up in here, on how do we go about, because sometimes you need tiny lots for transformers. They're Duke Power. If you look at Duke Power, there's small little lots on there. But just kind of wanted to speak a little bit on that to kind of keep that on the horizon on, what that minimum lot size is, what the reason for that is, and have it a little bit more drawn out to why somebody can get any kind of lot approved, whether it's, a power thing on their lot or something like that. So just, we can talk a little bit further on that, but just kind of wanted to bring that up so we kind of know what's the smallest lot somebody can have versus, and what the use of that lot can be. And maybe it's already defined in there and I missed it, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out. So as y'all move forward with the planning commission and we go through, these small lot sizes, what is the smallest lot size that we allow in our ordinances?
Yes, sir. Oh, well, at the moment, the control-free district has no minimum lot size. The other districts they vary from quarter acre on up to several acres.
Right.
So, but we can work on something to look at, things for transformers, utilities, and things of that nature, of course.
Right. What I don't want to happen is, as we move forward in the tiny house market, that all of a sudden you got 6 houses that pop up on somebody's backyard. And as I've seen that occur, and not in this county, but in other areas, that seems to be where people are subdividing their back lots. They have a single road entry in there. Maybe that's permittable in our ordinance. I don't know the answer to that, but I've seen it happen to 3 or 4 other counties that they're trying to now jump back and say, okay, now what do we do? So I just kind of wanted the planning commission kind of think about that a little bit and kind of define what that is, so we can, we don't get caught sleeping.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I believe adjusting our road standards would also help look at that. And that's something Mr. Reed already looking at. So that would also affect the land use portion of it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
Any other questions?
I got about 3 things to go over.
Mr. Mulder, please. Do I hear a second?
I got a second, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.